Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, today we're talking about how do you take a company from scratch, from mere startup to hyper growth? How do you develop your market? How do you sell the product? How do you structure your sales organization, your marketing organization? Today we're going to be talking with Jason Price, and he's going to take us through his journey from day one to what he's doing now is really exploding in the market of video email, a new, smarter way of communicating with your marketplace, your customers, your prospects, to get the message across. The old emails, the text emails just aren't working the way they used to. And today, video email is the way to go. Let's get into the interview. But if you're out at Dreamforce, check out Jason. Just send him an email. See if you can meet up with him. Also, our partners out there will be Gong and Nudge.ai as well as Prezi. Prezi will have their offices open. So go check them out. Check out their booth. Stop by and say hi. Let them know that you heard about them from the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Brian. My name is, like you said, Jason Price. I founded a company called Covideo back in 2004. And, we've been doing this for quite a long time. And really, our focus has been a video email applications that gives sales professionals the ability to very easily send personalized video emails in the sales process. And we're now at 30 employees. We're based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and just really excited to be part of the conversation today.
Cool. How'd you come up with this idea?
It goes back a long time. So, back in the early 2000s, I was a student at Purdue University with one of my very good friends, and from a very early age, my goal was to build a company, and so I'd went into computer science as a major in 1999, right before the dot-com bubble busted. And I didn't really have a focus on what I wanted to do other than I knew I wanted to build a company. I just wanted to have control of my own destiny. And so, early in the 2000s, my partner and I, we were building some applications, trying to make a little bit of money. I was in my early 20s, just trying to figure out, what is the best approach for me as an entrepreneur. And then we ended up getting lucky in early 2004. This was the year after I graduated from Purdue. We ended up teaming up with a serial entrepreneur. He'd started 15 or 20 companies, and he kind of gave us the direction we needed to get Covideo launched. We spent the next 8 months in development, and the idea for Covideo really evolved over time. We knew that video was sort of this untouched frontier. YouTube hadn't been released yet. And so for us, we just sort of got into the concept, looked at some ways where we could apply video technology to help businesses grow. And then sort of the vision ended up happening over time, and it's the technology that we fell in love with. Excellent.
Now, I bet it was hard getting those first few customers, or was it?
Yeah. Early on, that was difficult. So a couple of things made it challenging for us. The first thing I would say is that we didn't really have a lot of sales experience, right? I mean, we're kind of young. We're just getting out of college. We've spent a lot of time developing software. And so now we have this piece of technology, and we're kind of looking at ourselves, okay, what are we going to do to go market this thing? How are we going to make money? So early on, the early years, 2005, 2006, we were small, just a couple people. And so it relied very heavily on cold calls that did not go well, made more cold calls during that time than I'd really like to even count. But it was a necessity for us. And what we ended up doing, I think, that really sort of put us on the map is we ended up developing a referral program where we end up signing up a bunch of independent reps. And independent reps obviously can have some downsides and upsides. The upside's great when you're tight on cash. And so we'd basically just sign up anybody that would refer business into the company. And so I think at our peak, we had 200 independent reps in the field, sort of out evangelizing the product, driving us opportunities. And that strategy or that structure is really what gave us the momentum to really start growing.
Excellent. And now, could you use your own product back then as a way of getting started, or was it too early?
Yeah, no, great question. So it was. Yeah, I mean, that was a very key part of how we sort of marketed and promoted our tool. And so, and actually, it's a critical part to what we're doing today as well. And we can get to that in a little bit. But essentially what we would do is before we would make that initial cold call, we would introduce ourselves with a personalized video email. And obviously just using our technology, allowing the customer to get a sense of who we are. And so what that would do is when we could get those videos viewed is it would turn that obviously very cold call into a bit of a warmer call. And we'd get a notification as soon as the video is viewed. So when we actually made the call, when you get them on the phone, there's not as much defensive barriers put up, because they almost get kind of a sense that they might know you, right? Because they've seen you now, they've heard you speak. And so using our technology to sort of introduce ourselves prior to that call is what made a significant difference. And frankly, that was sort of how we started building the market out. As we looked at our different verticals and how we could sort of attack the market, it was really selling Covideo in such a way that we were just using it ourselves, which is using it as a very great way to create that first introduction.
Now, was it 100% cold outreach, or did you try some marketing strategies?
Yeah, so the marketing was, that came with it. So the marketing for us was more about just sort of how we're going to segment the market, because we looked at it and said, well, anybody that's a sales professional could benefit from this technology. So that's basically every company on the planet has some salespeople. So what we ended up doing is we sort of went after two specific verticals, the automotive industry, so car dealerships, and the real estate market. And, for us, what we're looking at is, who's getting a lot of online leads and how can we give them this technology to make that first connection a little bit better. And so they were a good target for us. But there was a second piece to that strategy that was critical for us. And that is, if you think about it, everyone really buys a car or a house at some point in time, right? So our thought is, if you're a car dealership or real estate agent and you're sending out videos, you're exposing our technology to potential clients. So if you got a CEO or sales manager buying a car and they get a video email from the dealership, it's sort of introducing them to the technology. So actually, even to this day, I mean, one of our largest opportunities for referrals and generated traffic comes from our existing customer base. So that was sort of what we were looking at, is how can we kind of virally market our technology through our customer base, and that worked quite well for us.
Cool. And what was the reason for going after like automotive? That wouldn't have been like the top on my list. I have no experience with that.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. I mean, I think it goes back to a lot of things. So, we basically had three founders in the company, and the serial entrepreneur that had basically given us the direction and drive to get this company going. He had a lot of experience in the automotive space. His son was managing and running one of the largest Honda dealerships in the country. And so we were able to create a story based on some of the experiences they had that made it quite easy. And not to mention, at that time, if you're thinking about it, a lot of car dealers were really transitioning from a business that was sort of old-fashioned, right? Putting ads in newspapers or magazines, doing direct mail. Everything was sort of moving digital, and they were just now starting to get all of these online leads, and really they weren't really sure what to do with them, right? I mean, I'm telling you, in 2005 and 2006, as we were talking to dealers, most of them weren't even accepting email addresses or keeping them on file. I mean, they weren't transitioning into sort of what the digital space was going to be for them. So we knew for a fact, based on all this traffic that they're getting, that they had to do a better way of communicating. They had to do a better way of connecting, just because of how competitive it is. So it just, once again, as we just looked at different targets, just one that evolved for us pretty easily.
And how about real estate? Now, real estate, I can see the connection because people want to see the person, they want to see the property. There's a lot of visual components to it. But then again, that's a B2C kind of market. That's, very transient. A lot of people start to be realtors. I don't know how many people stick to being realtors.
Yeah, I mean, I think in 08, 09, everyone had a real estate license, right? Before everything drops.
Yeah. Down. Everybody had two houses, too.
True. No, man, good question. So the real estate was for us probably a very easy approach. So the dealership was challenging in such a way that, you go sell the technology to an environment, to a manager. Now you got to go bring in all of these sales reps and sort of train them and motivate them. So you're sort of working with a group of people. The nice thing with real estate agents is essentially the buyer was the user, right? So if we went and worked with a real estate agent, they would not only be the person making the decision, they would be the end user. And I'm sure if you remember, I mean, I definitely remember back in the 90s growing up. I mean, I felt like every single for sale real estate sign had someone's picture on it. I mean, you don't see that as much anymore, but there was just crazy amount of personal branding going on. And so to be able to give these real estate agents the ability to sort of brand themselves throughout every part of the communication piece as it relates to the transaction, if you think about it, as they get a new listing or as they sell a home, a lot of times what they were doing is really just created automated content. Just simply thanking someone for their listing or congratulating them on their purchase. And so this just sort of gave them the ability to really connect with their customers in a really great way. But I think one of the things that real estate agents love more than anything was just the referrals. That 12-month video that dropped out based saying, hey, it's been 12 months. We hope you're loving your home. By the way, if anybody's in the market, please pass them my way. And so they sort of use the technology in a number of different ways. And so that story just really made sense for how video works.
And so it sounds like the first couple years you were the salespeople or salesperson, or when did you start building out a sales organization?
Yeah, so for the first very many years, and I'm telling you, it's embarrassing. I wish I had some of those recordings, honestly, from the early years. I mean, I'll just never forget. I mean, early 2005, we just picking up the phone, and I mean, I didn't really understand scripting or overcoming objections. We just went after it, and you just lost a lot until you figured out how to start winning. But it wasn't probably until 2010 that us as founders, so my partners and some of the early employees, sort of started focusing on bringing in a sales force. And what we ended up doing, it was funny, we used a lot of the strategy we used early on, and we basically built an outbound sales team. We had a lot of inbound stuff going on with pay-per-click and SEO, and that's fantastic. But the real focus for us was, building this team that could go out and help us scale the business. So right now, if you look at our group, we have 5 people that are on the phones every single day. Their goal is to make 80 to 100 calls. But what they do is similar to what we did back in the day, and that is every single opportunity starts with a video email. And by creating that sort of warm personal introduction, connecting with that person a little bit better, our conversions go on appointment setting from 20% to 75%. So if someone doesn't view the video, we basically will schedule about 2 out of 10 phone calls. When we can get the video viewed, we're doing about 7.5 out of 10 on average. And so for us, really, it's just sort of it's using what we did early on, but just doing it so much better. So we have the ground force out setting the appointments. We then have sort of the middle section of account managers that take the appointment and close the sell. And then once the sell is complete, we have a success management team that sort of, does the ongoing retention support. But from an outbound perspective, it is by far the most ROI-driven piece that we do here.
Now, have you started to go after the B2B space or had success there?
So I'm going to pause for a second. Can you be specific what you mean by that?
Oh, the business to business, meaning like instead of, is it still like kind of one-to-one realtor to salesperson, or can you go after like a sales manager, VP of sales, or somebody who's driving like their inside sales team?
Oh, got it. Okay, can you ask the question again? For sure. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So have you found any success in the B2B space?
Yeah, no, good question, Brian. So that's one of the areas where we've transitioned heavily, right? So if you look at sort of the way we segmented the market early on, our core focus now is really going after enterprise accounts. Okay. And so when you look at, for example, a vice president of sales that might have, a team of 40 or 50 people that are interacting, sitting in an office every day, following up with their clients. Video is just a much more engaging way for them to communicate. We've signed up multiple Fortune 500 companies that are using our tool actually in the recruiting department. So as a way to really sort of set that company apart in terms of how they're reaching out and communicating with potential people that might come in to interview or be a part of their organization. So a core focus for us over the last couple of years has really been expanding out of those smaller sales opportunities and really focusing on large enterprise. And
how has your approach changed, kind of from kind of the one-to-one, realtor, auto salesperson to the VP of sales? Is it the same approach or?
Yeah, no, we've had, as I'm sure you can imagine, had to transition. So I would say when we go after the individual salesperson or some of the smaller organizations, it's much more brute force to some degree, right? We're just hammering the phone, making sure the emails are consistent, backing us up and setting up the right tone. I would say we apply a lot more account-based marketing to our larger opportunities. So it's much less about the volume of calls and much more about strategically getting referrals into those accounts. Actually, we do a lot of LinkedIn marketing, so getting some connections on LinkedIn, trying to passively set up some conversations. And then when we make the call to those larger opportunities, we always make sure we get the video introduction first, but it's much less about setting the appointment, right? Of just trying to get them on the phone and agree to a longer conversation. It's much more about really trying to understand their business and having a meaningful conversation on that very first call. So I would consider that much less of a very quick appointment set call and much more of a discovery call. So, it still is an outbound strategy and there still are cold calls related to it, but it's much more strategic in terms of the script and how we approach those opportunities.
Yeah, because today it seems everyone's saying the same thing, that email has been burning people, meaning that they're getting tons and tons of, trickery emails just to try and get them to open it.
Right.
And it's turning into a black art now. There's all
Of
kinds
course.
of courses on it, and people are forgetting that it's a person on the other end. Have you seen that kind of evolve? Certainly in the last 3 years, or?
Yeah, I have. It's funny because when you looked at sort of the email marketing approach, everyone was doing it 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, if you had any sort of constant contact or email client, you just were blasting stuff all the time. And then I think the popularity sort of dropped off because the return was kind of low. And I've actually seen it pop up a lot more lately. So frankly, I'm seeing, I think there's the predictable revenue book by Salesforce. A lot of people are starting to sort of implement this strategy of sort of combining emails and phone calls to create opportunities. But I think it's the same thing in that our inbox is so incredibly crowded. And I bet I probably get 4 or 5 cold emails a day. And I got to tell you, they all look exactly the same, right? I mean, it's, hi, Jason. There's a small little pitch, a bunch of plain text. And half the time I don't know what they're selling, right? Yeah. And I sort of move on. And that's where video, I think anybody that's either implementing an outbound strategy that's currently in place or thinking about putting one in place, by being able to incorporate some very personal, powerful video emails of the sales rep to sort of get that relationship building process going quicker and sort of utilize that technology to make those obviously boring emails that aren't really very effective much more engaging. That is one of the most important things we can be doing as marketers right now.
Yeah, because it's kind of taken over the world. You look at Snapchat, Instagram,
sure,
LinkedIn. I mean, the amount of traffic that I'm getting on video on LinkedIn is almost 100x what I'm getting off of text. So it's enormously different,
Sure, yeah.
And I think, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no, it's just you're absolutely right. It's the medium that people are looking for, right? I just had read an article, and I'm sure you've seen it. I think they're saying, or Google is projecting that 80% of all traffic in 2018 is going to be video, right? I mean, so we know that that's the direction everything's going. And so from a consumer perspective, people are really eating up this content. And so to be able to incorporate that into our business communication strategy is so critical. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Brian.
Have you found any success with like CMOs as far as them using video as a way of communicating, or are they too focused on the high polished corporate videos?
Yeah, no, it's something we've actually just been looking at in the last really probably 12 months. Frankly, I have probably in the last couple of weeks meetings with CMOs from very large companies. And I will say that the content is much more polished for sure, right? Because what they're doing is outbound campaigns that are sort of brand awareness or structured, very tailored messages. But most of these CMOs and large organizations, they have access to video creation capability, right? Whether it's in-house or a third party. And so what they're doing is using our tool as sort of the application to not only host, but drive the message, right? Because there's some certain things within the program, like one of the things is called hotspot reporting. And so we can track views down to the second, how far into the video someone's watching, whether or not they're dropping off at certain points in time. So that ROI data and intelligence is so critical to a CMO. And so what they're doing is creating the content sort of outside of Covideo, but then using us to drive it and the analytics to sort of make decisions on the effectiveness and how they make changes to their future marketing efforts.
Yeah, because I think that's another part of it, when the analytics, because, managers, certainly, VPs of sales, they're kind of stuck today with certain KPIs, right? Number of emails sent, number of cold calls placed, number of meetings, but it's not the quality. And I think that being able to tell if somebody's actually watching a video, you can't tell if somebody actually reads the email.
Right.
They either open or don't open it, reply or click on something. That's the only thing you can really tell.
Yeah, you've nailed it. Yeah, I think driving that intelligence is important, and I think people are starting to see it. Like we've seen things, and I think it was Forbes reported it, that 96% is the increase in click-through rates when you include a video. So, I mean, it's not just that you get the intelligence on it, but you're going to drive so much more engagement, which then gives you more data because you now can really track the funnel of where the consumer's going. So, yeah, it's just such a much better way of really interacting with them.
Now, how do you see yourself scaling this business? Because I see it either becoming, either a niche or exploding. I don't know. Is there a middle ground? for a business
Well, we
like
see,
this?
yeah, no, we see it exploding. For
Yeah,
sure.
hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think there's a lot of ways that we're looking at scaling it right now. So I think one of the most critical items for us is our outbound strategy, in terms of these people on the front line, making the calls, sending the emails, and creating opportunities for us. So we just actually had a meeting last week, and our goal, because it's extremely profitable in terms of the cost that we have of staffing somebody, generating the leads, and closing the accounts. And so what we're trying to do is, how can we schedule these 5 people that are just out hunting every day to 30, 40, or 50, and go after not just the verticals we're going after, but expand out horizontally through an organization. Because like right now we're working with Fortune 500 companies, but we may only be working with one department within that company, right? So how can we horizontally expand through those opportunities? How can we get out and start exposing ourselves to other big companies, but then also globally? So right now we just set up an office in Croatia, and we're starting to expand out to the European Union. Because once again, videos, I mean, it can work anywhere, right? And so a lot of what we're trying to do is honestly scale and expand on what we know works. And that is our outbound strategy. Now, there's other pieces to that, right? So obviously all the SEO and pay-per-click and inbound marketing, I mean, that's all fantastic. But what we love is the control of our pipeline. What we love is that we can measurably track a certain amount of activity from a rep and know what the ROI is going to be. So if it's profitable per rep at 5, we know it's going to be at 10 and 20 and 30 and 40. And that's when things start getting very big for us.
So your challenge is hiring? Is that it? Or
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, for us, culturally, you hear people say that it's the biggest buzzword, right? Now, how important culture is in the team. I mean, truly what I love about this company, are the people. And I think one of the things that we've done very well, but also you could probably look at it as very poorly, but well in the sense that we hire extremely slow. So to give you an example, I filled one of the 5th seats for the BD team just 2 months ago, probably. So we were looking maybe in August. We started interviewing for that position in April. I can't tell you the hundreds of people that we screened, flooded through this office, interviewed. And we are just so dead set on making sure that we get the absolute, not just the right person from a town. It's just a lot of people that can make calls and sell stuff, right? But finding people that believe what we believe, have the right passion, have the right drive, that can fit in with how we operate here. It's sort of held us back on rapidly hiring. So I think one of the things that I need to probably get over as a leader is that, hey, look, as you grow and as the business grows, culturally, some things, while they're still going to be in place, you're going to have to move much quicker. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges right now is being willing to go out and take some risks and hire much faster, for sure.
Now, how would you characterize the culture?
Oh gosh, well, it's energy, passion, fun. I mean, if when you walk in, like right now, I'm looking out my window at the office, and we're a wide open space. We basically took an old nightclub and an area that's yeah, it's cool, man. It's a very populated area, lots of bars and restaurants. It's basically called Broad Ripple, so familiar with Indianapolis. It's a really cool little village here. So we took this nightclub, multiple stories, gut rehabbed it, and made it our space, right? And so just when you walk in right now, it's just and the space is just part of it, but it's really about the people, right? Just, you have people that love what they do. They come in with the right energy. They like having fun. And I'd say probably the best way to describe it is it's truly like a family. I mean, the best friends in my life are actually sitting outside this door for me right now. And so we've grown it in such a way to where we all love each other and we spend a lot of time together. And I think that's what you and I are explaining, talking about now. It's like what we've got to realize is you can't, if you want to grow to 100 people, you can't have 100 people in your family, right? At some point, you've got to sort of let that part of it go. But for me, I'm just so focused on keeping that tight-knit group on how we all interact. So that's sort of our challenges at the moment.
And for this BD, or what some people call sales development rep, what is the right profile? Other than the energy and the passion and the personality, what background do they have? What personality skills do they have? Work ethic, things like that.
Yeah. So we have really gone through a number of different personality profiles for that position. Oh man! But I think what I've found, it's the younger millennials when you look at the group now, that is what has worked for us in terms of now that we've sort of adapted. So we've been doing this for 3 years. So we've sort of molded the program into what we think it needs to be. And when you look at the personality profile, they're typically very young. We bring someone in that has little to almost no sales experience. So, right, they're green, they're moldable, they're ready for their first opportunity, but they have all the characteristics and the qualities and the personality of a great salesperson. And I think what we look for is more about someone that's driven to be something more, right? So like this is what we create is a very entry level opportunity to where you're really generating leads for somebody else, right? But we're looking for that person that's hungry to have the opportunity to do that and then grow into the next level. So we basically promote from within, and we have a career track to where once you reach a certain level within the Outbound BD program, the sales rep program, setting the appointments, the goal should be promoting to an actual account manager or salesperson. So you're doing the webinars and closing the deals. But I think for me, what we've found is that when you bring someone in with experience, when you bring someone in that honestly is frankly qualified and amazing at the job, they get bored too fast. They get bored very fast, just banging the phone and sending the emails and setting appointments for someone else. So I think for me, as we expand it out, it's definitely very green, inexperienced people that are ready to grow.
And how long does that take? Because I've seen that also. I spent a lot of time with companies, basically setting that model up. And, what they tell me is, you get a year. And after a year, they're out on the ledge.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I go, maybe it doesn't have to be that bad. It's not, you're not building iPhones,
Right. Oh man. I got to tell, there's probably some truth to it. I mean, I'm sure you've been there too. I mean, there is no matter, I can't tell you how many thousands of cold calls I've made in my life, and I still don't really love doing them. Anybody that says that they love them, I just would love to spend time with them, because it's just hard to really find that as what you want to do long term. But I think what makes it different for us is that their career path is about 2 years actually. And because we're getting, like the gentleman we hired in August, he had graduated in May. It's his first job. He had a couple internships. He's motivated. He's hungry. Because we're getting these people at such a young age, we're finding that the progression in that role is a bit longer. And that's why I think it's super important as you build this out, is to get those people that can do it. Because let's be honest, right? It's really training on a script. It's really training on a process. So as long as they can get the script down, understand the objections, and battle through it, they're not negotiating price. They're not, overcoming tough objections related to the sales process. They're just setting an appointment, right? And so I think it's getting that younger generation that can kind of live in that role for a couple of years. That's going to help make it happen a bit longer.
Excellent. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to learn more about Covideo and what you're doing?
Yeah, so just our website, covideo.com. We actually have a free trial on there, so you can go check that out. I think what you'll find, what makes us very unique, is our support. So the same day you'll get communication and a meeting set up with one of our account managers that does not just showing you how to use the program, but really walk through best practices to make sure you understand how you can apply some video to your business.
Hey, that's a pretty exciting journey. I always like hearing about how companies go from like zero to this hyper growth state, and what is the process that they're using and how much better they've figured it out, turn it into really a growth machine. Hey, I want to really thank everybody for listening to the show. Please tell somebody about it, especially looking for new guests and managers, people who have also gone through this journey and want to share it with the community. Really appreciate that. Connect up with me and Jason on LinkedIn. All the connections and the links are in the show notes. Go check out covideo.com. Also, just tell one person this week. I'd really appreciate that. And connect up with us. We'll see you next time.